The front door creaked open at 11:47 p.m. Not slammed, not rushed, just slow, careful, like someone trying not to wake a house that no longer belonged to them. I was sitting in the dark. Not asleep, not waiting. Finished. The hallway light flickered on as Emily stepped inside, heels dangling from her fingers, hair slightly messy, lipstick smudged just enough to confirm everything I had spent the last 6 months trying to deny. She froze when she saw me. Not because I was there, but because of what was behind me. The silence stretched like a knife pulled too slowly from skin. "Daniel," she whispered, her voice fragile, rehearsed. "You're still up." Still up. As if I hadn't been up every night wondering where my wife disappeared to while our kids asked why mommy stopped reading bedtime stories. As if I hadn't memorized the sound of her lies. As if tonight wasn't different. I leaned back in the chair, letting the dim kitchen light spill just enough across my face so she could see my eyes. No anger. That's what scared her. "Yeah," I said quietly. "I figured I'd wait." Her gaze drifted past me, and that's when it hit her. The living room. Empty. No toys scattered across the carpet. No backpacks by the couch. No tiny shoes by the door. Her breath hitched. "Where are the kids?" I didn't answer immediately. Because this moment, this exact second, was the only one I'd get to see the truth hit her without any mask to hide behind. Fear. Real fear. "I took them somewhere safe," I said. Her voice sharpened instantly. "What does that mean, Daniel? Where are they?" I stood up slowly. Every movement controlled. Every second deliberate. "It means," I said, stepping closer, "they're not here to hear you come home smelling like someone else." Her face drained of color. And just like that, the lies began forming behind her eyes. What are you talking about?" There it was. The script. The denial. The same tired performance she'd given me over and over again while I slowly died inside my own marriage. I smiled. Not because anything was funny, but because for the first time, I wasn't the one losing. "You should sit down," I told her. "I'm not sitting down," she snapped, panic rising. "Tell me where my kids are right now." I stepped aside slightly, revealing the envelope on the kitchen counter. Her name writ across it in my handwriting. Clean. Final. She hesitated. Just for a second. Then she rushed past me, grabbing the envelope like it might explode. Her fingers trembled as she tore it open. Inside were 3 things. A letter. A set of photos. And a printed document. She saw the photos first. And that's when everything changed. Her knees buckled slightly as she stared at the glossy images, her and him, outside that restaurant downtown. Laughing. Touching. Kissing. Not rumors. Not suspicion. Proof. "No," she breathed. Her eyes darted up to me, wide and desperate. "This isn't, Daniel, this isn't what it looks like." "It looks like my wife forgot she had a family," I said calmly. Tears welled instantly, but I didn't react. Because I'd already cried all the tears I had months ago. She shook her head violently. "You don't understand." "I understand perfectly." My voice didn't rise. Didn't crack. Didn't break. That's what made it worse. "I understand that while I was working double shifts to keep this house running, you were out building another life." Her breathing became uneven. "I understand that while our daughter asked why mommy stopped kissing her goodnight, you were too busy kissing someone else." "Stop," she whispered. "And I understand," I continued, stepping closer, "that tonight wasn't the first time." That's when she broke. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just quietly. The kind of break that happens when someone realizes the illusion is gone. "I was going to tell you," she said weakly. I let out a soft breath. "No," I said, "you were." The truth sat heavy between us. Unavoidable. She clutched the photos like they might somehow change if she looked hard enough. "They're just pictures," she said, grasping. "They don't show everything." "You're right," I said. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. Tapped once. then turned the screen toward her. Video. Her. Laughing. Calling him's baby. Telling him she hadn't felt this alive in years. Her hand flew to her mouth. No, Daniel, please. I watched it 3 times, I said quietly, just to make sure I wasn't imagining it. Tears streamed down her face now. Messy. Real. Too late. I made a mistake, she cried. I swear it didn't mean anything. I tilted my head slightly. 6 months is a long mistake, Emily. She collapsed into the chair, shaking. I didn't want to hurt you. That one almost made me laugh. Almost. But you did, I said, every single day. The clock ticked loudly on the wall. Second by second. Like a countdown that had finally reached 0. She wiped her face frantically. Where are the kids? I studied her for a moment. This woman I used to love. This stranger wearing her face. They're with my sister, I said. Somewhere they won't have to watch this. Her shoulders sagged in relief. Then tensed again. Daniel, please, we can fix this. There it was. The final act. The desperate attempt to rewind something that had already burned to ashes. I walked past her, picking up the last item from the counter, the document she hadn't touched yet, and placed it gently in front of her. She looked down. Her eyes scanned the title. And then, no. The word came out sharp. Terrified. Daniel, no. Divorce papers, I said simply. She shoved them away like they burned. No, you can't just, this isn't how this works. I met her gaze. It is now. Her chest rose and fell rapidly. What about our family? She demanded. What about our kids? I leaned in slightly. That's exactly why this is happening. The room felt smaller. Tighter. Like the walls themselves were closing in on everything we had built and destroyed. I can't do this, she whispered. You already did, I replied. And that's when something shifted in her expression. Not guilt. Not regret. Fear. Of losing control. You're overreacting, she said suddenly, her tone hardening. People make mistakes, Daniel. Marriages go through things. I stared at her. Really stared. And in that moment, I saw it. The truth I had been too blind to accept. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't weakness. This was who she had become. 6 months, I said again softly. That's not a phase, that's a choice. Her jaw tightened. You think you're perfect, she snapped. You think you didn't push me away. There it was. The blame. Right on time. I nodded slowly. I knew you'd say that. She blinked, thrown off. You were always working, she continued, gaining momentum. You stopped paying attention to me. I was working, I interrupted, to pay for the life you were living behind my back. Silence. Sharp. Cutting. Her lips parted, but nothing came out. Because for once, there was nothing left to twist. I stepped back, giving her space, but not an escape. You can sign them tonight, I said, nodding toward the papers. Or you can wait, but it doesn't change anything. Her hands trembled. You're really doing this, she whispered. I didn't answer immediately. Because the truth was, I had already done it. The moment I saw her step out of that restaurant with him, smiling like she used to smile at me. It was over. I already did, I said quietly. Tears streamed down her face again. But they didn't reach me anymore. Not like they used to. Not like before. The woman I loved wouldn't have needed to cry in this moment. Because she never would have created it. I don't have anywhere to go, she said softly. I looked at her. Then toward the door. Then back at her again. That's not my responsibility anymore. The words landed heavier than anything else I had said. Because they were final. And she knew it. Her entire body seemed to deflate. Like something inside her had finally given up pretending. Daniel, she whispered one last time. But there was nothing left in her voice. No manipulation. No excuses. Just emptiness. I turned away. Walking toward the hallway. toward the life that was about to change forever. Lock the door when you leave, I said. And I didn't look back. Because some endings don't need a final glance. Some endings are already burned into memory forever. And this one was just the beginning. The next morning didn't feel real. It felt quiet. Too quiet. Like the world had decided to keep moving, but without me in it. I woke up before sunrise, out of habit. Years of early shifts had wired my body to function before the rest of the world even opened its eyes. But this time, something was different. There was no soft hum of the coffee machine Emily used to turn on. No faint sound of her moving around the kitchen. No whispered arguments echoing in my head. Just silence. And for the first time in months, it didn't suffocate me. It felt clean. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the empty side where she used to sleep. The pillow was untouched, cold. She hadn't come back to the room last night. Good. I didn't want her there. I stood up, moving slowly, like I was relearning how to exist inside my own house. Every step felt unfamiliar, even though I had walked these same floors for years. But this wasn't the same house anymore. This wasn't the same life. And I wasn't the same man. I walked into the kitchen. The envelope was gone. The photos were gone. The divorce papers. Still there. Unsigned. Of course. I let out a quiet breath, running a hand through my hair. She'll drag this out, I muttered under my breath. Of course she will. Because that's what people like her do when they lose control. They stall. They manipulate. They try to find a way back in. But there was no back anymore. Not for her. Not here. Not with me. I grabbed a glass, filled it with water, and leaned against the counter. The coolness grounded me, even as my mind kept racing. The kids. I needed to get them. I needed to see them. Because no matter what happened between Emily and me, they were still my entire world. And they deserved stability. They deserved truth. But not yet. Not all of it. Not the kind of truth that breaks something inside a child that never fully heals. I pulled out my phone and called my sister. She picked up on the second ring. Hey, she said softly, like she already knew. How are they? I asked immediately. They're okay, she replied, a little confused. Emma kept asking when you're coming. My chest tightened at that. Emma? My little girl. 7 years old. Too young to understand why her family was falling apart. I'm coming to get them today, I said. There was a pause. And Emily, my sister asked carefully. I looked at the divorce papers sitting on the counter. She's not part of the plan anymore. Another pause. Longer this time. Are you sure about this? I closed my eyes for a second. And all I saw was that video. Her voice. Her laugh. The way she said his name, like it mattered more than anything else in her world. Yeah, I said quietly, I'm sure. Okay, she replied, come whenever you're ready. I hung up and stood there for a moment. Just breathing. Just existing. Just holding myself together. Because the hardest part wasn't kicking Emily out. The hardest part was walking into my children's lives and pretending everything was okay. When it was. When nothing was. I grabbed my keys. But before I could leave, the front door opened. I froze. Slowly, I turned. And there she was. Emily. Same clothes as last night. Makeup washed away. Eyes red. But something about her was different. Not broken. Not defeated. Focused. That put me on edge immediately. You're still here, I said flatly. She closed the door behind her and locked it. I wasn't finished, she replied. I stared at her. You were, I said, you just didn't accept it. She walked toward the kitchen slowly, her gaze locked on me. I didn't sign anything, she said. I noticed. That means we're still married. I let out a small, humorless laugh. That's not how this works. Legally, it is. There it was. Not emotion. Not regret. Strategy. I felt something cold settle in my chest. You came back to argue paperwork, I asked. I came back to talk about our family. I shook my head slightly. No, you came back because you realized what you're about to lose. Her jaw tightened. You don't get to erase me from their lives. I stepped closer. I'm not erasing you, I said quietly. You did that yourself. Her eyes flashed. I am their mother. And you were my wife, I replied. Look how that turned out. Silence hit hard again. But this time, it wasn't empty. It was building. She took a deep breath. We can fix this, she said again, but her tone had changed. Less desperate, more calculated. I didn't respond. We go to counseling, she continued. We figure things out for the kids. The kids, I repeated slowly. Yes. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. You didn't think about the kids when you were sneaking around for 6 months. Her face twitched. That's not fair. No, I cut in. What's not fair is them growing up thinking this is normal. Her expression hardened. You think taking them away from their mother is better. I held her gaze. I think protecting them from a toxic environment is better. Her eyes narrowed. So now I'm toxic. I didn't hesitate. Yes. That hit her. I saw it. The crack in her composure. But instead of breaking, she adapted. And that's when I realized. This wasn't over. Not even close. You don't get full custody, she said coldly. I blinked once. Excuse me. I talked to a lawyer this morning, she continued. You can file whatever you want, but you're not taking my kids away from me. Something shifted inside me. Sharp. Dangerous. You were on a date last night, I said slowly, with your boyfriend. She didn't flinch. That doesn't make me an unfit mother. No, I said, but 6 months of lying, neglect, and emotional abandonment might. Her lips pressed into a thin line. You'd really drag me through court. I took a step closer. If that's what it takes. The air between us turned electric. 2 people. Once in love. Now standing on opposite sides of something that couldn't be repaired. You're going to regret this, she said quietly. I tilted my head. No, I replied, you already did. And that's when she dropped it. The mask. The softness. The pretending. Her expression turned cold. Almost unfamiliar. You think you're the victim, she said, but you're not as innocent as you think. I frowned slightly. What does that mean? She smiled. And it wasn't the kind I remembered. It was sharp. Calculated. You'll find out. A chill ran down my spine. Not because of what she said, but how she said it. Like she had something. Like she was waiting. Like this was just the beginning of a different kind of war. I didn't respond. Because whatever game she was about to play, I wasn't going to react blindly. She grabbed her purse. I'll be in touch, she said. Then she walked out. Just like that. No tears. No begging. No looking back. And that scared me more than anything else she had done. Because Emily didn't quit. She adapted. I stood there in the silence again. But this time, it wasn't clean. It wasn't peaceful. It was heavy. Like something dark had just been set in motion. I looked down at the unsigned divorce papers. Then toward the door she had just walked through. And for the first time since last night, I felt it. Not pain. Not sadness. Something else. Something sharper. Something colder. A realization. This wasn't just about betrayal anymore. This was about control. And Emily wasn't going to give that up without a fight. I picked up my keys again. Because one thing was certain now. This wasn't the end of the story. This was the start of a war. And I was going to win it. War doesn't begin with shouting. It begins quietly. With documents filed behind closed doors. With conversations held in low voices. With plans made while the other person still thinks they have time. Emily thought she had time. She thought I would hesitate. She thought I would break. She was wrong. 3 days later, I filed. Not just for divorce. For custody. Full custody. And I didn't warn her. Because she hadn't warned me when she decided to destroy our family. The courtroom smelled like polished wood and tension. Emily sat across from me, dressed perfectly. Hair done. Makeup flawless. Composed. If someone walked in without context, they'd think she was the stable one. The victim. That's what she was counting on. Image. Perception. Control. But she forgot one thing. Truth doesn't care how good you look while lying. Her lawyer stood first. Confident. Smooth. Prepared. Your Honor, he began, my client acknowledges that the marriage has faced difficulties. However, she is a devoted mother who has remained actively involved in her children's lives. I almost smiled. Actively involved. That's what they call absence now. I kept my face neutral. Because this wasn't about emotion. This was about precision. Then it was my turn. My lawyer didn't raise his voice. Didn't dramatize. He simply presented facts. Dates. Times. Evidence. 6 months of it. Photos. Messages. Call logs. Video. And then, the shift. The judge leaned forward. Interested now. Listening. Seeing. And for the first time since this started, Emily looked unsure. Mrs. Carter, the judge said, is it true that you engaged in a prolonged extramarital relationship while residing in the same household as your children? Emily's voice came out steady. Yes. Not denial. Not this time. Strategy again. Own it just enough. Minimize the damage. It did not affect my ability to parent, she added quickly. That's when my lawyer stepped in. Your Honor, we would like to present Exhibit 14. The screen lit up. A timeline. Color-coded. Clean. Brutal. Every night she claimed to be working late. Every weekend she said she was with friends. Matched perfectly with him. Locations. Times. Proof. And then came the part she didn't expect. I stood. Walked forward. And spoke. Not loudly. Not emotionally. Just clearly. My daughter stopped asking for bedtime stories after the 3rd week, I said. The room went still. My son started sleeping with the lights on, I continued, because he thought his mom might leave again in the middle of the night. Emily's composure cracked. Just slightly. But it was enough. This isn't about punishment, I said, looking at the judge. It's about stability. It's about protecting them from confusion, from inconsistency, from learning that love means being abandoned. Silence. Heavy. Real. And undeniable. Her lawyer tried to recover. Tried to redirect. Tried to paint me as controlling. Cold. Vindictive. But the foundation was already broken. And once truth gets in, it spreads. Then came her final move. The one she hinted at. The one she thought would change everything. Your Honor, her lawyer said, we would like to address concerns regarding Mr. Carter's availability as a parent, given his demanding work schedule. There it was. Her play. She leaned forward slightly. Watching me. Waiting. Hoping. But I was ready. Exhibit 22, my lawyer said calmly. Another screen. Another reveal. A signed document. Company letterhead. Official. I didn't look at her. I didn't need to. I already knew the moment it hit. I've resigned, I said. Her head snapped toward me. Eyes wide. What? The word escaped before she could stop it. For the first time. She wasn't in control. I've accepted a remote position, I continued. Flexible hours, full availability for my children. The judge nodded slowly. taking it in, processing, understanding. And Emily, she looked like the ground had disappeared beneath her. Because this wasn't reactive. This wasn't emotional. This was planned. Every step, every move, every sacrifice. For them, the ruling came 2 weeks later. Those 2 weeks felt like years. But I didn't break. I didn't doubt. Because deep down, I already knew. Primary custody is granted to Mr. Daniel Carter. The words echoed. Final. Unchangeable. Earned. Emily sat frozen. Not crying. Not speaking. Just still. Like someone who finally realized the game was over. She got visitation. Supervised at first. Structured. Controlled. Safe. Outside the courtroom, she approached me. Slowly. Carefully. Like she didn't recognize the man standing in front of her anymore. Daniel, she said softly. I turned. Not angry. Not emotional. Just done. I didn't think you'd go this far, she admitted. I held her gaze. You didn't think I would choose them over you, I corrected. Her eyes dropped. For the first time, there was no argument. No manipulation. No strategy. Just truth. I lost everything, she whispered. I shook my head slightly. No, I said, you gave it away. She looked up at me. And I saw it. Not love. Not regret. Just understanding. Too late. Months passed. The house felt different again. But this time, it felt alive. Laughter returned. Bedtime stories came back. Lights stayed off at night. Because fear was gone. Emma smiled more. My son stopped asking questions he didn't understand. And me. I finally slept. One night, Emma looked up at me after I tucked her in. Daddy, she said softly. Yeah. Are we okay now? That question. It hit deeper than anything else. I smiled gently. Yeah, I said, we're okay. And for the first time. It was true. Some people think revenge is loud. Explosive. Dramatic. But it's not. Real revenge is quiet. It's rebuilding. It's choosing peace. It's walking away from chaos. And never looking back. Emily thought she was losing a husband. What she really lost was a man who would have given her everything. And in the end, I didn't destroy her. I just stopped saving her. And that was enough.